in person and virtual. So we are recording. Those of you on here, Curtis, if you could do me the huge favor of keeping an eye on the chat, because I'm projecting onto the monitor here. And so I'm going to be looking a couple different ways. Okay.
Yep.
So I don't want to be rude to the people in front of me. So I'm going to be speaking more to them right here, but every so often I'll definitely look at you guys and make sure we do it. And then Curtis and Leah, and I see Drusy, feel free to interject at any time. You guys, we have a smaller group today, which is kind of awesome because we're going to talk about a topic that I think is really important, is your professional presence. I'm going to be real with you. These are my least favorite templated slides. I don't know why I chose this theme. I really regretted it, but I already wrote them all, so I had to roll with it. So bear with me. The color scheme is weird. Everything's off, but the content is great. And the reason why we really wanted to talk today about professional presence is I think that, especially for newer agents, but even experienced agents, this is something that's not always on our radar, right? How do I actually have a conversation with a seller, a buyer, or another realtor? What do I wear to appointments, right? What's the difference between building a professional presence in person, but also building one online? So we're going to talk through today. I actually got inspired by a few coaching sessions with many of you guys as agents who kind of go through this. Like, you know what, it's great. AMP is awesome. We learn how to call, we learn scripting, but a lot of times it's hard to remember, how do I present myself, right? What do I need my social media, but my online presence to really say and speak to? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But again, I really want to be, I want you guys to engage. Feel free to unmute. Feel free to ask questions. And then obviously, Drusy, Curtis, and Leah, if you guys have anything to add, don't hesitate. So we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. I found this really good snippet of what a professional presence is. Hi, girl. Come on down. So I don't know. I'm sorry if there's a little bit of a glare on it, but basically a professional presence in quick definition is a dynamic blend of poise, self-confidence, control, and style, which permits you to be perceived as self-assured and competent. And this is easily attained, like somebody picks that up right when they meet you. I don't know about you guys, but I really loved this definition, but it also kind of made me panic a little bit because of the self-assured and confident part. So I don't know about how anybody else feels, right? But I'm that person that will second guess like everything I do and say, not in the moment, but afterwards. It'll like be a ball of anxiety in there. But when you think about what does professional presence mean, and we're going to literally break down in person versus online, talking to clients versus talking to other agents. We're going to go into that, but kind of have this in the back of your mind. What does that mean for you and your business? What does competency and poise and self-confidence and self-assuredness mean for you? And a lot of times, even, you hear the expression, fake it till you make it. That's honestly like what I have most of the time. Even when I'm doing coaching and confidences and things like that, everyone's like, oh, wow, that, you really did a great job. And I'm like, inside I have a pit of anxiety and despair going, oh my God, is there something in my teeth? Like, you're just worried, right? But outwardly, almost always when you meet me, you're not going to pick that up because I understand that that's part of my professional presence, just like it's part of all of yours. Every person that you guys meet is a potential client, right? Even if not in that moment down the line. Every other realtor you meet is a potential colleague or somebody on the other end of the deal. So making sure that you present yourself as being self-assured and competent, because if you go in front of a client and you're umming and eyeing, you don't really have a succinct way of talking, you're really unsure, they're not going to want to list with you, right? And part of that is also being prepared for objections and frankly, being prepared for people not to jive with you, which I always say is a them problem, not a you problem, because you guys are all fabulous. But you got to be able to kind of shake it off and move. And that's sort of where that poise comes into play, right? So let's talk about, hi, come on down. Let's talk about the in-person, so the face-to-face professional presence. So, and by the way, I did a lot of research on here. You'll see some links. I will actually share this, I promise. I will share this PowerPoint in our Friday roundup so you guys can click these links and go through those articles on your own. If you want, I found them really, really interesting. So some pro tips, and we're going to kind of break this down. Number one, be present. Right? That is such an important thing. Be 100% available to the people you are with and eliminate those distractions. And frankly, this applies across your personal and professional life. And don't forget, like real estate really blends the line of personal and professional a lot. So that's why it's like, even if you're getting a drink with a girlfriend, that might become a client down the line, right? And so making sure that you are 100% present with the people that you are with in that moment is really key. I can't tell you how many showings I've been on where the listing agent is just on their phone texting the whole time. And I understand that stuff happens, but here's the deal. No one's dying in real estate. We're not solving like the world's problems, right? Like we do not have codes to nuclear weapons. Like it's going to be fine. So in that moment, when you're that listing agent, your seller is expecting you to show the property, to highlight its features, right? To make every showing count. Vice versa, if you're the buyer's agent. If you're consistently on your phone, even if you're trying to just secure the next showing, maybe just say, hey, hold on, before we run in, I'm going to secure the next showing, but I want to be totally present in this. Because remember, your buyer's job is to ooh and ah as they walk through the property, right? Is this going to work for me? Is it not going to work for me? Your job is to look through and advise them on any potential inspection pitfalls that you see, right? Always with the qualifier, I'm not an inspector, but you know, and you really want to make them feel like they can talk to you. Same goes when you're on that listing presentation, buyer presentation, or when you're in trainings like this. Look, we've been all super virtual. I'm like the #1 guilty person of like being on a virtual meeting and like having my phone, but like on the side over here and be like, yeah, and texting. But now we're moving in person. And even virtual people can tell. People can tell when you're not paying attention. And that kind of goes into one of the other things on here, right? Which is engaging. Look, ask, listen. One of the worst qualities that almost everyone has in life, right, is that we listen to respond. We don't listen to understand. And what that means is, as you're asking me a question, instead of listening to your entire question and being present in it, I'm already running through what the answer is in my head. And more often than not, I'm probably going to interrupt you, right? And get to that answer before you finish asking the question. Right. Okay. And that's totally fine to recognize that about yourself. I know that I sometimes, especially when I'm really excited or I'm really passionate, and we think in our head that we're not being rude because we think in our head that we're like, I'm vibing off that passionate like question that you're asking, right? Like, yes, let's brainstorm about that. But what you're really doing is cutting that person off and letting them know that I already anticipated everything you were going to ask. So it doesn't really matter that you're asking me that. Right. And it really devalues. So make sure that you engage. And a big part of that is looking at them, right? Which is kind of that eye contact. I'll be honest, eye contact is really tricky, right? If you're listening, it's always easier because you're just kind of watching that person. When you're talking, it can be a little bit more difficult and you try to like look aside, look either way. With eye contact, you don't want to be that creepy person that just like never leaves eye contact, which I'm doing to Talia right now. And she's like, look, she just looked away. She's like, this is uncomfortable. So you don't want to be that creepy person. You want to mirror what that person is doing as well. So if the person you're with is, you know, paying attention to you, but they are kind of glancing around, maybe you're in a coffee shop, stuff is going on, feel comfortable to do that. Again, you don't want to be that, but eye contact is a sign of respect for both parties, right? I mean, it's really important to do it. And I promise you, you're going to actually understand a lot more of what they're saying rather than just responding if you're doing that intimate eye contact from there. Intimate's a weird word, but it kind of fits on here. So poise, which was in our definition, if you remember, right? So the big one with poise, and I am like 1000% guilty of this all the time, is fighting your fidget and finding your peace. Okay. I am the #1 fidgeter. I will cross and uncross my legs probably every 5 minutes during this presentation. I like flip my hair a lot. Okay. I like fiddle with my watch. For some reason, even though I don't have a ring, I'll like pretend like I have a ring and turn it on my finger. But honestly, those are non-verbal cues that I'm not paying attention, that I'm not invested in what you have to say back. Right? It also kind of goes to that lack of confidence. Because if you're constantly fidgeting, especially with like the crossing and uncrossing your legs or crossing your arms, uncrossing your arms, it's showing that you're not comfortable in what you're wearing and perhaps you're not confident in what you're wearing. And so that's all the other person is going to see. That's all the other person is going to hear. Same thing with poise. I know the poise is, you know, we think of it as a very physical thing, right? Being able to walk in a room, not trip over our feet, not fidget, but it also has to do with how you talk. One of the biggest lessons I've had to learn, and you can hear me doing it right now, is to talk slower because I talk very fast and I love to talk fast. But when you talk fast, it's harder for someone to listen to understand. And there is a lot of weight that comes with gravitas, but that comes with pausing. It's so powerful, that pause. There is just so much power in that. We're going to talk about that in the voice in a second. But kind of remember your poise is both physically what you're doing. So fight that fidget, right? And try to be comfortable, which kind of goes to one of the things we're going to talk about, style, not from me, because clearly I'm not the epitome of style, but I pulled from experts, okay? But then we'll go into confidence, right? So part of confidence is listening to understand and not just answer. Because then when you have an answer to give a client, it is going to be confident. It is going to be succinct. It's going to be thought out. The other thing that's really important with this, especially, and we're going to talk about negotiating in a minute, but when you're trying to get something, you're trying to get them to sign a listing agreement. You're trying to get them to agree to your price, right? Or at some point, we've all recruited you, right? I recruited 2 people at this table and I'm working on a 3rd over here. I'm going to pause because I want to make sure that what I'm saying back inspires that confidence and excitement in what we have to offer here. Just like each and every one of you, when you are meeting with a buyer or a seller and you're expressing your value proposition, if you rush through your value proposition, it's going to go right over their head, right? The other thing that's really important is, what are the biggest objections with clients, especially a listing, right? Well, you charge too much. The second objection is, I thought my house would be worth more. Okay, but the charging too much is a really big one. And if you're not listening to understand where that's coming from, you're not going to know how to adequately respond to that objection, right? So a couple different things to look for. If they say to you something like, you know, I get that you're doing a lot of stuff, but some of the other realtors that I've talked to are really more in that 5% range, and you're coming to me with 7. But what am I saying in that? I know you're coming with a lot of stuff. They're basically telling me no other realtor has come with as many things as I have, right? They're also talking to me, they're also telling me that they're talking to other realtors. And they know that that average is 5%, which, as we all know, we're not allowed to say that that's an industry standard or anything like that. So as you take a second to respond, and let's say I presented my gold listing concierge package and I know what I'm doing. Let's say for 7%, I also said I was going to do cleaners, a cleaning right before the open house and a move out clean for them. And maybe I'm even going to have my handyman on call to make some things right and tight in the property, so that when we get to inspection, no one's asking for $600 because, you know, the window doesn't close properly. Hearing that back, they know that I'm doing a lot. So they can kind of see that that amount really is worth 7%. Let's be real, right? But clearly I'm in competition with other people. A confident reply is not, well, you know, I'm doing all these different things for you. And like, I know other people come in at 5, I guess I could do 6. A confident reply is, I appreciate that you see the value that I'm bringing with all of my marketing, with all of the extra things that I know is above and beyond what most agents offer in this marketplace. I appreciate also the fact that you've talked to other agents and they're hovering around that 5% for you. Because of the value I bring, I do start at 7% for my clients. Maybe there's some way we can work it out, right? Or what is a number that you're more comfortable with? There's a lot of power in asking that person to counter you first. And that counter wasn't 5%, right? They didn't say I want 5%. That counter was a lot of other people. So is there a number that you'd be more comfortable with? What are you looking to be around? And they might say, well, you are doing a lot more, like you said, so I'd be okay with 6. Now that's a full percent more than everyone else has offered them. But you know that what you told them was valued at 7%. That's where that confidence, each and every one of you is worth 7%, especially if you're using Listing Concierge, right? And you've met with either Leah, myself, Curtis, or Drusy to really know how to negotiate Listing Concierge, how to pitch it. Take something off your side if you're going to go lower. That's where that confidence comes into play. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I definitely appreciate 6. Listen, I would love to work with you guys. I love your property. I know I can do a great job. I can meet you guys at 6, but unfortunately, I will have to get rid of the move out clean, right? And my handyman being on call. That being said, after inspection, if issues do come up, I'm certainly able to have him come out for you guys, you know, at the cost that he would charge for, but I'm not going to be able to have him come in because that's something that I would front the charge on. right? So, and if they say, well, that's what I really want, well, you know, for the handyman, I would be willing to go up to 6.5. Everything is a negotiation. And I think realtors, a lot of times we're taught, right, how do you write the contract? How do you fill out the listing presentation? Even our Moxie, right, how to go through the 12-minute listing presentation, how to highlight listing concierge. But this goes to our session 2 weeks ago, how to negotiate for yourself and articulate your value proposition. That's where that confidence comes in, knowing what you're worth and how to get it. But if you aren't listening to understand what the objection really is, you're going to answer something that doesn't feel confident, right? And then you're going to feel like, okay, fine, I'll take 5. 5 at that. So you're going to pay $449 for the listing concierge package. Then you're going to pay your handyman X amount. Then you're going to do 2 cleanings. That's crazy. That's madness, right? So you really want to be strategic. And this is a big part. We're going to talk about negotiating in a minute, but have that confidence. And that's only going to come from listening to understand. The last big tip, after reading several articles on this, was your voice. So that's that injecting interest, adding inflection to keep the engagement, changing the pace, changing the volume, changing the pitch. This is probably the hardest thing for most people to do because we don't really hear ourselves talk, right? And then every single person I've ever known that does hear themselves talk is like, oh, I hate the way I talk, which is exactly what I say every time I have to upload this into YouTube and it starts playing automatically. I'm like, oh, I hate the way I sound. But your voice is really important, right? So the articles I was reading was like, you know, if you talk in monotone, it sounds like you're not engaged. It sounds like you're not interested. If you're overly expressive and overly excited about this 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in Lincoln Square, they're going to be like, what is wrong with you, right? Like, I mean, it is a great place. Like, I would love to get $350 for it, but come on. So you guys want to mirror what your audience, right? So who you're with, you kind of want to mirror that, but you also want to be excited and passionate in a way that inspires them to understand that your value is top notch. And this goes to when you're talking with another realtor as well, whether you're calling them to try to host their open house, which is, hey, guess what? I saw your open house, or I saw your new listing at 123 Main Street. It's so beautiful and it's right in the area I work. I would love to host an open house for you this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, whatever time works for you and your seller. That is a lot more warm and engaging. You complimented their listing, maybe even bring up something from the photos, like, you know, the kitchen table is just to die for. I've been looking for one just like it, something like that, rather than just saying, hey, I saw your listing, Rhonda. I don't know if you're having an open house this weekend or not, but can I host it for you? Right? That goes a long way. So think about that in the back of your head. The pace, volume, and pitch is really important. We've all sat across from people that talk really high and really fast. Maybe don't mirror it exactly, but a couple things that I researched was actually having that lower tonality inspires more confidence and trust in what you're saying. So now you're all going to watch TV and you're going to be like, huh, okay, I get why this person gets paid all the goo gobs of money because their voice is just so great. So keep that in the back of your mind. Did I hear somebody unmute to add something? Okay. No, we're both in person and hybrid, so we're trying a new thing. Okay, so now let's go into negotiating, right? And I put this in person on the in the in-person section, but on the next slide, I am going to break it down in person versus virtual. I know it's a little bit hard to see with the glare. I'm sorry. So, okay, the big tips with negotiating: prepare and then execute. Right? I cannot say that enough. So, number 1, do your homework. Okay, if you're going to a listing presentation, do your homework, do the CMA, understand what is happening in the area. Because when it comes down to negotiating the pricing of the property and then your commission, you really want to know that area solid. You want to know how much work it's going to take to sell that listing. Okay, because some of these listings, they're not going overnight. I know that everyone's saying, oh, the market's super hot, everything's flying off the shelf. Again, that's only certain inventory in certain areas. So you really need to understand what's going to be there. And again, doing your homework. Is this a building that you have to accompany showings and you can't have open houses in? Factor that into how much time you're going to be spending at that building, because you can't group people in an open house and you have to accompany showings. So I'm going to charge a little bit more, right? Because I can't put a lockbox down there. I'm going to have to meet every buyer and seller there. So keep that in mind. Clearly define your goals. Now, this is for you, but also for your clients, right? So if you're negotiating with another realtor on a price, you need to know your client's goals. If you're negotiating with a client, you need to know your goals. You don't go into the listing presentation and say, Joyce, my goal is XYZ, right? This is for you to know. So if I know I'm going into a listing presentation to get that $500,000 listing in Roscoe Village, my goal is to walk out of there pitching Listing Concierge, using Moxie, getting a 7% listing, and getting ready to go on, right? So you want to understand what your goals are. Okay. But then that last one, being prepared to handle objections. If you're prepared, then everything goes according to plan. I learned this, my first not babysitting in college job was my second actually was I worked at Navy Pier. I was that annoying person that took your picture and sold it to you later. So if you've ever ridden one of their boats or you've ever ridden the Ferris wheel and you have a photo from it, that was probably me. I've seen it in so many clients' homes, by the way. When I've shown it, I'm just like, oh, that's so embarrassing. But the thing about boats, especially tourist boats, is they leave at a very specific time. Okay. And the thing about summer is you guys have been to Navy Pier, those lines are insane. And sometimes they don't start boarding the boats until 5 minutes before it goes off because they don't care that you have to take photos of the 22 million people in line, right? They just want to get their boat off. So one of the things that the owner of the company would say to me was, if you are prepared for every possible outcome, right? It's not thinking about worst case scenario, but then everything is going to go according to plan. If you've thought about what the potential objections are and how you're going to handle it, then that client's not throwing you off, right? They're just going according to the plan you have. Might not have been plan A, which is, oh, sure, I'll sign at 72% and for my $500,000 listing, right? It might not be exactly according to plan, but you knew that that was a possibility. You already thought about how you would handle it. Doesn't mean you don't listen to understand, because a price objection is not always rooted in the same thing, right? Someone might be objecting on price because they don't have the cash, right? They absolutely need it. Or some might be objecting to price because they think that their house is just the best thing since sliced bread, when really it's, you know, the moldy ends of bread that you find in a park. So think about what that is. Remain calm and avoid getting emotional. I can't stress this enough. And I feel like most people have the composure and poise to do that face to face, but I think sometimes we forget it. We forget about our face. And for the last year, none of us have had to worry about what's happening on the bottom half of our face. Now y'all have to worry about what's happening bottom half of your face. So people can pick up when you're irritated with them, when you're mad at them, when you're sad, when you're upset, when they've hurt your feelings. And I'm not telling you guys to become unfeeling drones, but taking control of your emotions and how you react to things is a huge part of that professional presence. And I for sure have been there. I've been a new agent just like you guys, where I didn't get the listing, or somebody challenged me to the point where I didn't have answers and it was really uncomfortable and I stuttered and stammered, lacked confidence. I didn't get the listing. It's going to happen. I'm not trying to say that you guys are infallible and something like that's not going to happen, but you have to look back at that, give yourself 10 minutes permission to be upset and sad about it. And then, okay, my 10 minutes are up, like literally set a timer and be done and move on. The only thing in this world that you guys can control is yourself, your actions, your words, your feelings. You can literally not control anything else. Okay. So we think we have all this control in life and we really do not. So keep in mind, like, what can I do to help watch my face? One thing I learned really early on is, believe it or not, I will turn beet red if all eyes are on me sometimes. Now that I've said it, it's going to happen. But especially when I was younger, I just would get petrified at the thought of like speaking in front of people. So one of the things I would do is I would always have a glass of ice water, and it was always ice water because it, it has the condensation on the side. And when you hold that, it starts to naturally cool you down. And so it was like a nice little trick for me to be like, okay, so anytime I have to present, I always gonna have my ice water so that if I do start turning beet red or whatever, I can touch it and I can do that. The other thing is, sometimes we have to deflect, but definitely remain calm, avoid getting emotional. If you do need to get emotional, if you do need to freak out or vent, that's what Drew C. Curtis and myself are here for. Truly. I can't tell you how many times people call us just being like, okay, I'm sorry, I just need to vent. There's really nothing that you can do to help me. That's fine. We're the safe space. Literally, there's nothing you're going to tell us that we're not going to be like, whoa, don't ever call me again. Unless you like break the law, in which case Drew C is going to be like, you're going to need to call me all the time now, and we need to get lawyers involved, right? So don't do that. But if a seller is being mean to you, if a buyer is being mean to you, right? If you guys are just really upset and you're having a bad day, call us or text us, you know, say having a bad day. And I will send you like the longest, most beautiful text about how wonderful you all are to like bolster your mood. I just met with one of your colleagues today with coaching, and she's just like not digging life right now. And I was like, I need you to take half a day off for yourself. No real estate, no husband, no family. Do something for me that's like going to get a pedicure and a manicure. It's just really nice. Even if someone has to call me during it, I'm just like, whatever. You're going to yell. That's cool. I'm here. So find what that is to help you get back to that center, but always keep calm in front of your clients and in front of other agents. And remember, your clients are not always going to be calm. They're almost always going to be emotional. For a lot of them, this is the most money that they're ever going to spend in their entire lives. And moving is like the number 2 stressor, second to divorce, which frankly, divorce is a lot of the reason why we sell real estate, right? So just keep that in mind. 99.9% of the time, it's not you. It literally is them. They're projecting something onto you about them, their own lives. So just remember that. And then I like this one is find that creative solution. Okay. Understand the situation from all the different angles. This goes back to that previous slide about really understanding, listening to understand, being prepared for those objections, finding that creative solution. There's a lot of numbers between 5 and 7. There's a lot of numbers between 5 and 6, right? Or 6 and 7, 6.25, 6.5, 6.97. We're not going to care. That might make our math a little bit harder. But the point is, we want you guys to feel like you have that ability to negotiate for yourself. When you're negotiating for your clients with another agent, think about what those creative solutions are. Sometimes, like we just had this situation the other day where they're like, Rachel, the inspection was like fine, you know, the HVAC in the furnace works, it's just super, super old. And of course, the inspector was just saying how it could go out any day, da 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 da. My client wants to ask for a $12,000 credit. We know the contract says, right, inspection matters are for health and safety and things not performing to their intended use. Well, it's working today, but the inspector has now convinced your client it might not work tomorrow. What's another creative solution? A home warranty. You know what? Let's get a home warranty to start the day of closing. The good news for you, Talia, is that if it goes out during this time that we're under contract, they're going to have to fix it. And that actually happened when my best friend's buying in the suburbs. The furnace died the day before closing. Such are the sellers.
That's what I covered for the day of the contract.
Right. Exactly. Because everything has to be the way it was after attorney review.
Right.
Okay. So the home warranty though, Talia, if we get that to start the day of closing and a week in, the furnace dies, the home warranty is going to cover that. The home warranty is only $650.
There's different plans.
There's different plans, you know, always try to get the topmost plan for your clients, but condos are cheaper than single families because obviously there's more utilities in a single family, but that's a good option, right? And you can go back to that other agent and be like, look, you know, let's be real. This furnace is 45 years old. It's going to die. It's not clean. It's gross. It's not even worth having an HVAC come out. I got my buyer to be okay with it, but we do need your seller to kick in the home warranty. This is what we're asking for, right? There's ways to be creative. That's not always just saying, yes, okay. Another really big one that everyone always complains about is the GFI, right? I guarantee you every inspection you're going to be on, the inspector is going to find one outlet that doesn't have a GFI in it. Those are like the easiest things to take care of. But for some reason, buyers think everything starts at $500. Like literally like, oh, no GFI, that'll be $500. You can buy it for like $250 at a hardware store. And frankly, you could install it yourself. Is this something that you can say, you know what, I'll have my handyman go and do that, right? Or if you're the listing agent, find that like, listen, I'm not going to give my client this piddly, ridiculous, like honey-do list when I got 6.5% and I have my handyman. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm just going to pay my handyman because you also know in your head that your handyman is going to charge you a heck of a lot less, right? Anyway, so this is kind of where those creative, bless you, solutions and things come up with that. So on the next slide, and again, I'm going to send this to you guys, but the next slide, I did create a beautiful chart here, right? With a client, which is going to, again, be usually in person. I'm assuming that you're having a buyer rep agreement. I'm assuming you're having a listing presentation with an agent. Let's be real. That's usually on the phone, via text, via email. Okay. Text and email, my least favorite when negotiating, but we're going to talk about that. So as we go down on the left-hand side is the different way, like the different tips and different negotiating powers, and then what to do. I know it's really small. I'm going to go through it. Okay. So the first one, be an active listener. Kind of similar for both of them. When you're with that client and you're in person, again, that goes to the listening to understand their needs and respond after understanding. And if you don't quite understand, repeat the question back to them, right? Heather, what I'm hearing you say is da 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 da, and let them correct you if you didn't hear it correctly. But try to phrase it back to them in that way because you really do want to understand. With an agent, again, it's usually on the phone, and we're going to assume that most of this is like a phone call, okay? Eliminate distractions, okay, from yourself. So if you're negotiating a deal and you see that that agent is calling you, but you're also doing 22 other things, you're not going to hear correctly what they're saying. You need to understand their point of view before you respond. Everybody's just trying to do the best thing for their client. I say everybody, but we also know there's 1% of realtors who are just straight up jerks. Hopefully you don't work with them. But 99% of the time, people are just trying to get to the closing table. Because frankly, if you don't close, neither realtors get paid. Okay? But you do want to make sure that they feel like you're validating what they have to say. Most realtors have egos. All of us, frankly, have egos. We're just displaying them in different ways. But a lot of realtors have big egos. We're in an entrepreneurial business. It takes a lot of gutso to do that, right? So just make sure that you're kind of listening, and especially in multiple offers and you're negotiating, you want to be the one that gets a deal. Lay it on thick if you have to, okay? Embrace the awkward pause. This is my favorite, but everyone's absolute least favorite because awkward is actually in it. With a client, again, usually in person, okay? Pauses are such a powerful tool to show your negotiating skills, okay? And ultimately, whether they're going to straight out admit it to themselves or to you, a client is subconsciously rating your negotiating skills with them and how you're going to do for them when buyers come with deals, okay? So if you come in at 7% and they cut you all the way down to 5, but they're getting all the same stuff, they're gonna be like, so you're telling me to list at $500,000, but if an offer came in for 420, would you just tell me to take it? You know what I mean? You gotta think about that, right? So the pauses are really powerful and it shows you're considering, right? You're taking into consideration what they're saying. You're gonna articulate a thoughtful response. On the realtor side, and just try it. I swear to goodness, try it with a friend or a family member. Next time you're in an argument or next time you're trying to negotiate, awkwardly pause because it will force that other person to say something. And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to let slip more than what they were intending to say. Most realtors really flirt that gray area of client confidentiality, okay? A lot of realtors are going to give hints and clues as to what is contained in the other offers, which you want, heck, because you know what? Whatever they tell you, you can go tell your buyer, okay? But it's really not great for them to do that unless their seller has given explicit information that, yes, I don't care what you have to do, as long as it's ethical and legal, get me that offer. That's best. So a lot of times when you pause to reflect and perhaps formulate a response, that other person feels compelled to say something back. I did this to our president the other day, who's probably going to watch us and be like, what? But we were chatting, and I'll be real, I didn't really like the answer he was giving me. So I just was quiet for a minute, and this was all on the phone. And it literally compelled him to start talking and be like, well, and I'm just like, played you, right? So embrace that awkward pause because that's really important and it is very powerful, okay? Don't compete, cooperate. So with your client, okay, it's a little bit less applied to them. So instead of that idea of competing with your clients, think of it more from that idea of collaboration. So take things off your side to meet them halfway. You want to cooperate. You don't want to be that person that says, absolutely not, blah, blah, blah. A really good example of when to employ this is the price, the list price. Okay. Most of you guys are newer. A lot of new agents are just like, yeah, I'll take that listing. And then it sits there for 30 days. And even though you knew it was the wrong price, that client is going to 100% think you're not doing your job. So I'm not going to ever say don't take that listing unless it's a terrible person. It ultimately is your business. It's your decision. But I strongly encourage you, if you're willing to take an overpriced listing, have it in an email in writing or even written into the contract that after 2 weeks, if there's no activity, we will be dropping to this price. It's a way of cooperating with that client. It's a way of saying, okay, we'll test it, right? and making them happy, but it's also still maintaining your professionalism. No, I came in here with the right price. I came in here knowing the market value. I'm willing to test this $60,000 over price to prove a point, which I'm not going to say out loud, but I'm also not willing to take listings that sit for 60 days. And even saying that back, say, you know, I'm in the business of helping my clients sell properties for the most amount of money in the least amount of time. I try not to take listings that I don't feel confident in selling. That being said, I don't feel confident that this listing is going to sell at 560. However, I understand that that's a really important number for you to start at. So I'll agree to start at that 560. If you will agree that after 2 weeks, if we don't have activity, we're going to drop to where I think it should be, which is 535. Everybody's getting what they want. Right? So that's a really powerful thing to do. With agents, again, don't compete, cooperate is huge. Relationship building with other agents is so important, especially in tight markets like this. If you know the other agent or they know of you in a good way, you stand a much better chance of getting that offer, because ultimately they want to work with someone they know is going to help get the deal done. They want to work with someone that understands when your client is asking for $500 for a GFI, you're going to be like, that's crazy. This is what we're going to do instead, right? And at the end of the day, everybody loses if you don't get to closing. Everybody loses. You're not going to get paid. They're not going to get paid. Your buyer's going to be unhappy. Their seller's going to be unhappy. And ultimately, I don't really believe you guys are competing against anyone but yourselves. There's over 16,000 realtors in Chicago, in Carr alone, and yet somehow all of our brokers end up doing business. There's plenty of real estate to go around. You're just trying to do better than you did last week, last month, last year. Remember that. Practice. Okay, so practice makes perfect. With a client, don't practice with a client, okay? But to practice negotiating as if you were negotiating with a client, practice that with a non-agent, someone not in the business, someone that doesn't know what CMA stands for or CRM stands for. Somebody that's going to look back at you. And I would honestly encourage you to find an actual homeowner. Maybe they're not ready to sell. They're a good friend, you know, and they're going to give you somebody that's going to be able to give you fair, accurate feedback in a kind way, because I don't want any of you guys getting your feelings hurt. Okay. But you need to know how to articulate that value to the consumer. And so going to a non-realtor is going to be key. And then with agents, practice with one of your peers, somebody sitting in this room, somebody on this call, practice with them. Right? And set the stage a little bit. Like, we have to role play tomorrow during this managers meeting. Drusy, Curtis, myself, all of our other managers, we're going to be role playing recruiting all day. Not my favorite thing to do. Recruiting, yes. Role playing, no. But it sucks, but it makes you confident and comfortable. And maybe you sit there and you say, okay, Talia, I'm going to meet, can you be the seller and can you object to my commission? Because I'm really working on trying to be better at negotiating my commission. Okay. And maybe you work up to the point where you say, this first one, just be like a little nice to me. Like you're teaching me how to play cards, but we're not counting what the score is. But then by the third or fourth time, I want you to be like brutal. I want you to be that seller that is just like an attorney, a litigator, right? And they're just like not going to let it go that I want this. Work into that. You can also practice with, of course, Curtis, Drusy, and I, but I really want you guys to practice with other realtors, because I think that that's really key. It helps you guys build those relationships. But also, you know, I just think that you're going to be able to play off each other a little bit more, right? We are at our level because we've been doing this for a really long time. And you kind of want to be able to have that experience with your peers to be able to go back and forth. Okay, start with a plan. So identify with your clients, identify again, your best case scenario, what you'd settle for, and what you will not accept. There is a lot of power in drawing a line. Make sure you know that line ahead of time. When you're negotiating with an agent, understand what your client's objectives are and do not assume what your clients will and will not accept. Have that conversation with your clients. If they're buyers, if they're sellers, what is your guys' ultimate objective, right? Ask them the same question. What is the best case scenario for? What for you? What is something that you would settle for? And what is just like you won't accept? And this is between you and I. We have client confidentiality, but when I get down to this and we get offers, or buyer, I'm writing offers for you, it would really help me to understand how I need to negotiate better for you. That's also really powerful, right? Because some people are going to say, you know what, let's list for 5, but honestly, we bought this for 200 2 years ago. So like, we're going to be happy with like anything that we get. right? So just get us the highest that you can get us. We really trust you. That makes your negotiating with that other person, with the other agent, a little bit easier because you can push, but you also know that you don't have to push extra hard and potentially lose the deal. But if you also know that your clients absolutely need to net 500,000 and you're listing at 525, that you need to play really tight to the chest and make sure you get those numbers for them. Confidently handle objections, okay? So when you're with that client, again, anticipate what those key objections are going to be ahead of time so that you can get your responses kind of ready in your head, but don't let that keep you from actively listening, okay? Because again, assume automatically that everyone's going to push you on price and what you charge them. That's a given objection. You guys will know how to answer that if you are very confident in your value statement, but don't assume that you know why they're objecting. That's where negotiating comes in. Again, if the example that I gave earlier, they weren't objecting because they didn't see my value. They very much saw my value. I'm going to remind them that they acknowledge I have more value. So no, I'm not going to go to 5. I'm going to do this, right? With an agent, it's really important, whether it's a buyer or seller, know your comps. Know why you priced that listing where it is. Know why that listing is priced where it is or why you wrote that offer for it, okay? Also know the property so that you can anticipate the flaws. Okay, if you're writing a listing and they say in the real property disclosure that yes, there's been water in the basement and this is why, that's a flaw. Okay, everyone's gonna hang their hat on that. Know that ahead of time. For better or for worse, there's latent defects in your property. How are you going to handle that when you come down to negotiating? Okay. For your buyer, again, same thing, and prepare for their position, right? That helps you. Again, it's not saying like worst case scenario, but you should know what the other agent is going to come with you showing. Well, it's great that you priced it at this, Rachel, but the comp 2 doors down sold for this. You're right. They did sell for that. I don't know if you noticed, but their square footage is actually less, 500 square feet less. Their kitchen is outdated. Like, be prepared to bolster your side. Then the last one, which I think is really important, is determining that best time to negotiate with your client. And again, we're assuming that's mostly in person. Make sure that your client chooses the time that best works for their schedule so that they have a limit of distractions. You have their full attention. Don't, however, say when would work for you. Give them a couple options, especially if it's a colder lead, because if you say when would work for you, they're going to say, I don't know, let me check my schedule and get back to you. Spoiler alert, they're never going to get back to you. Say, I have some time Tuesday between 4 and 8 o'clock. I could also do Wednesday, mid-afternoon or later in the evening if that would work for you. When you give people 2 or 3 options, they're compelled to either accept one of them or offer an alternative. It's like a no-brainer. It happens all the time. So you want to be controlled because you also need to be available for it. But again, make sure you choose that time that's going to work best for them. For agents, identify the best way to communicate with the agent. So the best way, some people are texters, some people are emailers, some people are callers. And then anything that you do via phone, follow up verbal with written. Hey, Talia, thanks so much for taking my call. And this is in an email. I just want to sum up in writing that we countered at 4:59 with a closing date of this, because she might, and this honestly happens all the time, right? There's a lot of miscommunication. Sometimes we hear 4:15 and they really meant 4:20. Like, we just don't know, right? And agents are never going to admit it was their fault. And they're never going to admit that they told their client the wrong thing. They're going to say you said the wrong thing. So just always follow that up in writing. Okay, so now let's talk about style. I'm not going to read this whole thing off, but style, like your professional presence, what you're going to wear, but it's basically just like we showcase a listing to present well online and in person. You want to make yourself present well in line and in person. One of the coolest things about being in real estate is that literally all of us sitting at this table, and I'm sure everyone on this call, we're all wearing different levels of professional attire that work for us and our personality, right? So that's really awesome. You're not working a 9-to-5 in a bank where you have to come wearing a suit every single day. So it is about there's no set rules in real estate, for fashion trends or things like that. But again, keep in mind what you do for a listing, right? How you showcase a listing should be kind of how you showcase yourself as well. And I actually read that and I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. So again, and this is not from me, this is from experts, okay? First and foremost, dress for your market, but always look clean and professional. If you're going to go to a $1.2 million listing in the Gold Coast, you're going to a $1.2 million in the Gold Coast. However, if you're going to go show a 120 listing somewhere in the boonies, it doesn't mean that I'm going to show up wearing like ripped jeans and a t-shirt and like, you know what I mean? Still be clean and professional, but maybe I don't need to go there wearing Louboutins, carrying my Gucci bag, you know, all of those. I don't have Louboutins or Gucci bag, but think about that. Your attire is a respectful reflection of who you are. So still be yourself. Still be yourself, but remember you're a professional. So if you tell me, Rachel, who I really am is like someone that likes to go to the club until 4 a.m. and party till the all day is long, cool, great. Maybe invite me sometime, maybe don't. But how can we make that respectful, right? How can we make that so relatable? So that when you're sitting across from somebody, they don't naturally assume, oh, wow, that's probably what she wore to the club last night. Sorry for looking at you. I don't mean that that's what you would wear. But they can see that maybe you're fun and you like to have a good time, right? And you like to express yourself. So keep that in mind. Classics never go out of style. Black blazer should be in everybody's closet because you can literally dress it up, dress it down, wear jeans with it. You know, it's really a great thing. Consider your audience, both with clients and other agents. So if you're going to that luxury listing, dress accordingly, but also don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to this luxury listing, but I don't own YSLs or carry a Prada bag. That's okay. You can still look very professional, very put together, and very you still without carrying around designers. So don't let that luxury or high price listing make you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do that. You don't, but you do want to be put together because ultimately, again, especially when you're talking to a seller, how you represent yourself is a reflection of how you're going to represent their property. So if you show up wearing gym clothes, they're going to be like, they're going to show up wearing gym clothes to every showing, right? I started on the North Shore. I cannot tell you how many North Shore agents, you know, because you're in the North Shore, how many agents just like show up and like, I just came from yoga. Well, not acceptable. Okay. You're showing my $1.8 million listing, like yoga or not, put a dress on or something, like, come on. Right. Throw the black blazer.
Yeah. Always just have like a pair of heels. That way if you're ready, you can change them.
Heels. I've got flats in my bag upstairs. I got it. The other thing is when you're networking events with other agents, okay, one of the best piece of advice I can give you guys unsolicited is really don't stress about one-upping other agents. As someone that has gone to, like, I would be like probably north of 250 events in the 9.5 years I've been in the business, mostly with CAR, so Chicago Association of Realtors. I can tell you that it is far more important to be comfortable at one of these events than feel like you have to one up or you know, keep up with the Joneses. Am I saying show up like you just came from yoga? No, but I am saying if it's going to make you uncomfortable to stand on concrete floor of that West Loop loft for 3 hours during a cocktail event with other realtors, don't wear the high heels. There will be nowhere to sit. I absolutely promise you. And also you don't want to sit because usually if you're wearing high heels, you're wearing something moderately uncomfortable. So then you're just like, ugh, I don't want to do that. So be comfortable, be who you are again, but it is be that professional presence. And there's plenty of realtors that are super, we would say, right, fashionable. You're like, wow, I like that. And I promise you it's probably from like Old Navy and Nordstrom Rack, but they just wear it well because that goes to that last one. Clothes that fit well are always the best. Okay. And I hate to be that person, but like, seriously, I got this blazer at Nordstrom Rack. Thank you. But it didn't fit. So I took it to a tailor and I was like, I'm going to just make this fit a little bit better because otherwise, yeah, it's a black blazer, but it's not going to actually make anything look any nicer if it doesn't fit. Okay. Moving on from styling, because I'm realizing I talk a lot, and we've got some online stuff to go through. Okay, so building that, we're not going to go deep into social media, you guys, just some tips on how to build that professional presence online, because that's so important. So you guys, if you've been in a training with me, you know this is my favorite word, consistency. Consistency is so, so, so important. Posting consistent content on a consistent basis is important. What I mean by posting consistent content is don't post one day you getting out of a Tesla in your Louboutins and a Gucci bag, and the next day something totally different, right? Post content that's true to who you are and be consistent with that. Be consistent with the branding, be consistent with the color scheme. Doesn't mean that you can't be creative, but be consistently you. And then post on that consistent basis. I really don't want to go visit your guys' Facebook page and find out that you haven't posted since 2019. She's like, that's me. create and share industry-related content should be unique and audience-focused, right? So if you're trying to be the queen of condos or the king of Ravenswood, that's going to be your consistent content, but create new content, create unique content. Don't get hung up on trying to recreate the wheel, okay? Shakespeare ruined it for everyone. There's no unique ideas. Literally everything can be traced back to like a Shakespeare plotline. So you're not going to just wake up one day and have an idea that, oh my God, no realtor has ever thought of this before. I promise you they have, right? And it doesn't make that idea any less valid. Take that idea and R&D it, rip off and duplicate it to be you, okay? But you got to share it. You got to get it out there. Cross promote on all your channels. If you've got Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of those things, everything needs to have that consistent look. Don't be one person on Instagram and another person on LinkedIn. Okay? Everyone's just like, oh no, don't look in my way, Rachel. Advertise, don't be afraid to do paid advertising. It's so inexpensive online compared to print. Even Google advertising, which is a little bit higher. But my one caveat and piece of advice that's not on here is please don't advertise to a page that doesn't have anything on it. You could have a great ad. And then if someone goes to your Facebook page and like their last post was in 2019, then they're not going to follow you. They're not going to like you, and they're certainly not going to use you. So only run ads if you are running thriving online presence, because that's where you're routing them back to. Take a look at your insights. My other favorite thing is analytics. Track which content is performing the best, especially with your ads. Anything you're spending money on, you should definitely track that return on investment and make adjustments from there. Again, keeping in mind that you've got that professional presence, okay? How do you want that to come across? And then certainly not least is the last one on this list is being authentic. People do want to know you. I can't tell you how many realtors sit across from me and say, well, nobody really cares about the company. They are here to work for me. You're right, they are. The company's here to work for you though. So you need to care about the company. Okay. So at the end of the day, people do want to work with you, but they also want to know who they're working with. We're in a very face-to-face, personable industry. There's always going to be some sellers and buyers who are only about the numbers and they don't really care. And frankly, you probably don't want to be cool with them anyway. That's true. Those people are never going to go away. But I would argue a cool 90% of people do want to feel like they have that relationship with you, that they have that connection with you. So make sure you're being authentic. So let's talk about what that authentic web presence really is, okay? So it is 100% in your power to promote the image you want people to see. Think about that. When you think about your professional presence, what is it that you want people to see and pick up about your professional presence? Everything from what you're wearing to what you're doing in the photo. So no keg stands, you guys, okay? No, like this is my 12 martini post, like none of that. Really think about what is that image that you want people. Tell your own story. That's really important too. Right? Why did you get into real estate to begin with? Why do you do what you do? Doesn't mean every time you post something, you say, my why in real estate is da da da. No, but if you know what your why is, it's going to inherently come out in some way or shape or form in your online posts. That's really powerful. Be vulnerable and tell the truth. Okay, don't lie. I very occasionally do a very light shade of white lie because sometimes I just want to make people feel better. But you're not going to catch me doing anything more than, again, a very light, pale white lie occasionally. But tell the truth, be vulnerable, share things, right? One of our agents, Anastasia, I don't know if she's on this call or not, but she is going through the buying process of her own and it's her first time buyer. People are going to love to connect with that. You're being vulnerable. No, you're fine. She's like, this is just such a great one. People do want to connect with you again, and they want to know that they can trust you with their vulnerabilities. Okay. Where are you now versus where do you want to go? So when you think about your online web presence, you definitely want to articulate where you are now, but also you, like how they say, like dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Same thing without your online presence. Where do you want to go? Maybe you're not that luxury agent yet. So it's not like I can post my multi-million-dollar listings, but if that's where I want to go, then I need to make sure that I'm hosting open houses at luxury listings. I'm offering to co-list on luxury listings. I'm offering to do showings at no paid, so I can take a photo there. Or I'm saying to an agent, hey, I noticed that you don't have an Instagram or a Facebook and you've got a $2.8 million place. Would it be okay if I did a showing with you and I actually did it like Instagram Live? Right? Like these are something, some of our agents don't have the wherewithal or the care, frankly, to do that. Those are powerful things to offer. Okay. And then also, again, is that insight in what to expect when they work with you. So your online presence should be a reflection of what they're going to get when they see you. So again, if you're posting getting off your private jet in YSLs and Prada bags, and they don't see you wearing those shoes, okay, and you come wearing like, I don't even know, New Balance tennis shoes and like leggings, it's gonna not make sense, okay? So also think about, again, who you are, right? Are you that educator? Are you the relationship builder? Are you the connector? Are you the person that knows stats inside and out? Those are the things you want to present on all your online platforms, because when they meet you, that's what they're going to expect back from you, okay? So then these are some rules to follow from it. I promise we're almost done.
On a dating site.
On a dating app, yes.
Expect that picture.
Real estate is just dating without the romance, okay? Come on now, that's like all it is. So some rules, okay? A cohesive professional story across all platforms is important. Be who you are on Instagram, is who you are on LinkedIn, is who you are on Facebook, is who you are in person. Don't be one person, one place. The only person I'm different on is Snapchat, but that's only because I ever send it to like the same 4 people. Okay. I don't use Snapchat for business. And even if you friended me, I don't ever put anything in my like story that you could see. Okay. So just remember that. Define your tagline. There is a water fountain
I
upstairs.
don't know why this is happening.
No,
today.
you're totally fine. There's a water
I
thing
think it's
upstairs.
finally done.
Okay. Define your tagline. Mine is Scheid Sells Chicago. Everyone loves a good alliteration. It could be your why, it could be your mission statement, right? Coldwell Bankers is we're here to help you live exceptional lives. That's our tagline. You're going to hear Drucy, Curtis, myself. We talk about that. We flow in and out of that. Leah flows in and out of that. So what is it? What is you? One of our agents, he says, I'm the hardest working agent in McHenry County. That's his tagline. It's on his website. It's everything he does, but everything's rooted back in that. And when you meet him, you're sure. I mean, he's blowing me up right now because he's hard at work. Like, I need you to answer your phone. Not right now, Jimmy. Real soon though.
Okay. With our office. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Good for referrals, people. Okay. Be yourself always. Don't be somebody else. Root yourself in your values and lead from there. And then triple check your wording and photo choices. Okay. When in doubt, send it to myself or Drucy or Curtis and be like, hey, does this look okay? Because really, once it's out there, you guys. Take a second. There's been plenty of times, right? In the past 5 years, we've been in a very interesting political landscape. There have been plenty of Facebook and Instagram posts I have built that I'm like, all right, let me pause. Let me read it again. Yeah, no, I can't share that. Like, I work for Coldwell Banker. They'll be pissed, right? Like, really represent yourself, triple check that wording, triple check the photo choices. That's really important. I have one more slide. I promise you guys, I know it's 3 o'clock, but we're going to get there together. Last but not least, when we think about professional presence, it's also about that customer service, right? And what you can offer. So I found this really cute article about the love languages for customer service. I don't know why I thought typing this on my computer, it would actually turn into a heart like it does on your phone. Clearly, those are 2 separate devices. But you guys all know the 5 languages of love, right? Words of affirmation, quality time, touch, acts of service, and gifts. So breaking it down from the idea of customer service, because these are typically, again, love languages are typically romantic. Words of affirmation, it is so critical to check in and reassure your clients throughout the process, right? Especially buyers, they get cold feet all the time, right? Or honestly, with sellers, almost half the time after you do listing concierge and you show them how great their house looks in photos, they'll be like, maybe I shouldn't sell after all, right? So again, constantly check in, reassure them, make sure that they feel like they are doing the right thing. The quality time. Look for opportunities to free up your clients' quality time so that they can be more efficient. What can you help them with? If you know that they're getting pre-approved and you're at that buyer consultation, you know that they're going to need to provide W-9s or 1099s. You know they're going to need to provide documentation. Let them know it ahead of time so they can start being prepared, so that when they meet with that lender, it's impactful and they get a faster pre-approval that way. right? You know what an inspection is going to be like time-wise. Oh, it's a 1-bedroom condo that's 900 square feet. It's probably going to be an hour and a half, right? It's a 3-bed, 4-bath house. That's a big house, 4 baths. It's going to probably be about 3 to 4 hours. Make sure that they understand that. Touch, please don't go out just randomly touching your clients. Think of touch as improving your communication, right? We always say like client touches, right? Care calls, gifts. That's what we mean when we think of customer service for touch. So think about it as improving your communication. Set that expectation from the start with your listings, especially. I like to communicate with my sellers, a standing weekly appointment just to catch everything up. Doesn't mean you're not going to hear from me after every showing or throughout the week, but that way we can kind of culminate everything into one quick 20-minute meeting to get everything out. Trust me, when you ask them for a price reduction in 3 weeks, it will be a lot easier knowing that you've checked in with them in those given times. Acts of service, meet the painter for your client. Meet the electrician for your client. Don't make them take another day off of work to do that. Hook them up with the resources that they need, right? And I'm not saying I want you guys to like break your back, right? But also think about it on a listing. If you are getting that 7%, go that extra mile. It doesn't mean if you're getting 5, don't do anything, but your time is your money, right? Some clients will use and abuse you. It's a vacant property. Can you go like flush the toilets every 3 days? That's for 5% to Waukegan. Boo-boo, hire a service. Like, keep that in mind, okay? And then lastly is the gifts. Client appreciation gifts and closing gifts are the great way to end that transaction on, right? And to kind of keep going from there. I have changed a lot in my thought process of gifts. I really like the idea of Popeyes, like here's a succulent, something little, something quick. But I also think that gifts are really important to be experiences. Not just here's a bottle of champagne, because they're going to drink it and forget that you ever gave it to them. What can you give them that is going to be more lasting?
Well, with a bottle of champagne or a bottle of wine, you can get a wine opener that has your name on it, or even wine glasses or something.
Right.
Or coffee mugs with a little bag of coffee and you put your label on it.
Exactly. Always be branding. But another good example is I have my boyfriend is an illustrator. And so what I did a couple years ago is 2 years ago for holidays is I had him do renderings of the outside of my clients' properties. So they got that beautiful thing. And now he does that. Realtors across Coldbank are actually like hire him to do it's a nice closing gift because they're going to hang that.
Yeah.
They're going to hang that and they're going to look at that and know that you gave it to them. And it's a really nice conversation piece. One of my first buyers, I did that for them and they just paid him to do it for their sister-in-law who bought a place in California because they liked it so much.
There's
Right.
a lady that lives in my old neighborhood and my neighborhood blog, she does that.
Yeah.
Realtors. So if you ever need anybody, I can spread the word.
All right, so that is what I have. I've talked quite a bit. I see a few other people pop on. I don't see anything in the chat. Does anybody have any? I'm going to stop sharing so you guys can see me. I know we're a little over time. I'm also going to stop recording. Does anybody have any questions, any comments?